This is the 8th session out of 12 free sessions for students of German A1 level. This is the agenda. You have already seen it because I shared with you in the WhatsApp group. Let us continue. This is the disclaimer. You know it. Let's continue our discussion on dative. So this table gives you all the definite articles. This table gives you all the definite articles, all the indefinite articles, and all the negative articles that you need to use when you are speaking German. There is also one more type of article, that is possessive article. We'll talk about it on the next slide. But let's look at this table very carefully. Many people just try to memorize this table. Many people try to memorize this table. You don't have to memorize this table. How? I will. So you have to memorize just a few things. You don't even have to memorize. You know them because you are right now already. This is the 8th session, so you know them. You know them. You don't have to memorize them. Is what I'm trying to say. So let's look at the first. There are three parts to this table. Let's look at the first half. Sorry, not the first half, the first part out of three parts. So this table, you have three rows: nominative, accusative, dative. They tell you which case is it. Then you look at masculine, feminine, neutrum, and plural. They tell you what kind of an article is it. So masculine, you know; feminine, you know; neutrum, plural is. So anything when it is more than one, it becomes plural. All right, let's look at this one. So masculine nominative. So before you just learn, like you realize there is accusative dative. All you knew was that there is there, the, das, and the. There is for masculine, the is for feminine, das is for neutrum, the is for plural. So you just have to remember masculine and neutrum, there, das, and feminine plural, they are the same, the. Now then you realized when it is in accusative case. So when it is the accusative, I believe you know. So when it is accusative, I think we spoke about this in one of our sessions. Whenever you can replace the whatever the noun with who, it is nominative. Whenever you can replace it with what, it is usually accusative. Whenever you can replace it with whom, it is usually dative. This is one trick to remember it, right? Who is nominative, what is accusative, whom is dative. If you don't know what this means, please refer back to the recording of the previous sessions. Now, so if you notice, when you go from nominative to accusative, feminine remains the same, neutrum remains the same, plural remains the same, right? Only change that you see is in the masculine one. So there becomes they. That's it, right? This is what you should remember. When you go from nominative to accusative, the only change that you need to remember is for masculine one. So there becomes they. Feminine, neutrum, plural remain the same. Let's look at that for unbestimmte article here also. If you check, so ein for masculine and neutrum, plural does not exist, right? I think in English also. So you have a and an, right, as indefinite articles, but you don't have any article for plural cases, right? So you say he is a man, he is a woman, but you never say he is some article, uh, plural men, right, or plural woman, right? There is no article to talk about plural things in English, and the same applies to also in German. There is no indefinite article, is what I'm trying to say. So check nominative ein again, masculine. So here masculine neutrum are the same, and feminine eine. Okay, plural there is nothing, does not exist. Also I should write it over here, does not exist. This dash tells you that it does not exist in German language. Now what happens when you go from masculine to accusative? Again, feminine, neutrum remain the same. Masculine becomes ein, from ein to einen. You don't have to remember, I just have to remember that in whenever you go from nominative to accusative, the masculine sound starts sounding like n. So it will end with n. Now it was ein, right? So it is already sounding like n, but if you want to sound it more like n, you will have to add n. Now ein doesn't sound so very good, so you have to add e over here, so einen. Okay, the same applies for this one, right? So der, you have to make it sound like n. So there doesn't sound good, so you remove the r. Then this is my trick to remember it. Okay, so when you go from nominative to accusative, masculine starts sounding like n, ends with n. Now let's look at Negationsartikel, same kind. So again, masculine and neutrum are the same, kind. Feminine and plural are the same, right? So feminine plural are always the same. You see that also here in nominative case. Okay, not when I say always, I mean only in nominative and accusative case. Okay, so again, masculine neutrum kind, feminine plural keine. Now again, when you go from nominative to accusative, feminine neutrum plural, there is no change. They still remain the same. Only for accusative one, it becomes sound. It ends with the sound of n, right? So kainen, you cannot just add n over here, and then it doesn't sound good, right? I hope you get the idea. So it's kainen. All right. So you remember, so just telling you one more time, when you go from nominative to accusative, right? Feminine, neutrum, plural remain the same. The articles remain the same. Bestimmte, unbestimmte, negative. You will see this also repeats for possessive article, which we have on the next slide. So, but masculine starts sounding like n. Okay, then you have to make some spelling adjustments over there. What about dative? What about dative? If you look carefully, okay, I forgot to color code this one. I will do it. Let's see if I can find the purple color. I cannot find it, but okay, I will start with this one. Unbestimmte article. If you see, or maybe Negationsartikel, what is happening is that masculine and neutrum, everything changes. Okay, so now you are moving in the dative case, right? So everything will change. So masculine and neutrum, they start sounding like m, right? Kainem, they both are the same. Feminine starts sounding like air. It starts sounding like the nominative masculine definite article which ends with n. But you don't have to remember it like that. Just remember that feminine dative starts sounding like air. So keiner. Actually, when you are speaking it, you don't. Whenever you have a word which ends with r or er, you don't emphasize the r. But because you are learning this A1 session, I will request you to emphasize it when you are speaking. But later, as you go on, I will request you not to uh, not to emphasize the r part. Whenever a word ends with r, for example, you have bruder, mutter, right? So in the beginning, I will tell you to emphasize. You have to say bruder, mutter. But later, I will tell you don't emphasize the r part. Just say it like bruder, mutter. Okay, mutter. That's it. So now let's come back to a discussion. So again, masculine neutrum mm, feminine air, plural en, right? You can also see the pattern repeating itself over here. So dative, masculine neutrum bestimmte article, they are them. Dative, feminine bestimmte article is there. Again, say it like there, just so that you remember it. But you actually say it like there. You don't emphasize the r part. Dative, plural, n, right? Bestimmte article. Dative, plural, Negationsartikel, also n. So I guess you can follow the pattern, right? So if you just know how to write this table, right? And you don't have to remember it. So you just remember, I mean, this one right? This part, this much right? For bestimmte article, masculine there, feminine the, neutrum das, plural the. And then when you go to accusative, so feminine, neutrum, plural remain the same, only masculine becomes den. Now when you go to dative, masculine and neutrum will also change, but they will be the same. So them. Plural will be n, feminine will be er. Okay, there, them, there, them. Now, I think you can follow the pattern. So now you have unbestimmte Artikel, ein. But let's start with Negationsartikel because here you also have the fourth one, plural case as well. So again, this one, kein for masculine neutrum, feminine plural, keine. When you go to accusative case, Negationsartikel, feminine neutrum plural don't change, only masculine changes, goes from kein to keinen. When you go to dative case, Negationsartikel, masculine neutrum change, but they sound the same. So keinem. Plural will be keinen. Here, check. And then feminine dative will be keiner. Here it is there. I guess you can follow the pattern, right? Now let's look at unbestimmte Artikel. So plural does not exist, so you can just ignore it. Now nominative is ein neutrum and masculine are the same. Feminine is eine. When you go to accusative one, feminine, plural, neutrum don't change. Masculine changes from ein to einen. When you go to a dative case, masculine and neutrum, they do change, but they will change from their original case. But in dative, they both sound the same. So einem, okay, and feminine will be einer, okay. This, I believe you could follow this. If you have any questions, please ask. Now let's look at this table again. This table looks, many people tell you to remember this table, but I tell you don't have to, because you saw the pattern, right? What happens? You saw the pattern. Let's see if we can find the same pattern here as well, and you will find it. So let's just focus on this. So this table is for, I hope you can know this. You know this already. So this table is for possessive article, so my, yours, his, her, their, right? So let's say we're talking about ish, so nominative case. So this much you know, right? Here check, masculine neutral, neutrum or neutral, mine, mine, right? Feminine plural, minor, minor. Okay, now when you go from nominative to accusative, as I told you, feminine, neutrum and plural don't change, so they still remain the same. Check. Only masculine starts sounding like n, so mine n, right? Let's look at do. So thine, thine for neutrum and masculine, thine for plural and feminine. When you go to accusative, they remain the same. Only thine becomes thinen, right? To accusative. Let's look at er s. So sein, seiner, right? So sein for neutral and masculine, seiner for plural and feminine. Now when you go to accusative, so they remain the same, they remain the same, they remain the same. This one changes from sein to seinen. Okay, I hope you could repeat, you could follow the pattern. Now let's look at she or z. It's not she. This is she, this is z. Okay, this z means she. You also have z over here, but they mean something else. If you don't know, you should know what the difference between this small sz and this small sz and this capital SZ. If you don't know, I will talk about it just in a few minutes. So you have z over here. Again, check, nominative is ia, ia for neutrum and masculine, same. Feminine and plural, era. Accusative, as I said, there is no change. Here, ia becomes ieren, right? Let's look at via, unser for masculine and neutrum. Then you have unsere for feminine and plural. When you go to accusative, no change. But here, unseren, right? N. Ia. So what is this ia, guys? If you don't know, this is do, but plural, right? Let's say if I'm just talking to one person and I'm being informal, and I can use do for him as a pronoun. But if I'm talking to more than one person, right? It's just one person, so it is do, direct. And if I'm talking to more than one person, right, it will be ia, informal, right? So let's look at ia over here. So ia is nominative oya. Look at the spelling. So you might end up, sometimes people, they see this is euer, and then in feminine they will write it like euere, because they just follow the pattern. So mine becomes minor, so thine becomes dina, zine becomes zina. They just add e at the end, and they just assume that it will be e over here, but it's not how it is. Please don't make this mistake. So ia, so oya, same for neutrum and masculine. Then oira, check, oira for feminine and plural cases. Now when you go from nominative to accusative, no change, no change, no change. Here there is a change, it becomes oiren. Also check when you go from here to here, so it is euer. So to make it sound like n, you will write it like this, but then you have to remove this e, so it will be euren. Just remember this, it's a very small thing to remember, so I hope you can follow. Let's look at small sz and capital SC. What are these? So whenever you are talking about third party, so actually, for example, air sz is third party, right? You're talking about third person, but here you're talking about singular, right? So you mean he. So when you say air, you mean he. When you say she, you mean z. When you say it, you mean s, right? But what if you want to say something like they? It is also third party, but plural, right? There you have to use this small sz. Okay, so and what is this capital SZ? So capital SZ can mean two things. It can, but capital SZ always, you use this in formal scenarios, when you are being formal with them, when you are being, okay, when you are in a formal scenario. But it can also, it means direct, so you are talking directly to people, not like RSZ, indirect, something like do and ia. But do and ia are informal, right? So informal scenario, do and ia. They both are informal, but do refers just to one person. Er refers to more than one person. Capital SZ can mean one person, can mean two person, but you are just being formal, right? So Z, capital SZ, formal, one or more than one person. I hope you get the idea. So let's check. So it's ia. Again, check. Okay, when you are using the possessive article, so you have to be careful. So it's small IHR, capital IHR. So ia, ia. Same for neutrum in masculine. Feminine plural, era, era. Now when you go from nominative to accusative, no change. So no change, no change, no change here. You have to make it eran. Okay, I hope you could follow the pattern. Let's look at what happens in dative. So if you remember, masculine and neutrum will start sounding like M at the end. Will start sounding like M at the end. Masculine, neutrum in dative. Feminine will start sounding like air at the end, right? Okay, feminine in dative will start sounding like air at the end. Not plural in dative will start sounding like na. So you just have to remember this pattern. Masculine neutrum in dative will start sounding like m. Feminine in dative will start sounding like air at the end. Plural will start sounding like, in dative will start like n at the end. So m, air, n. Okay. You can also maybe like masculine neutrum mm, feminine r, plural n. All right. Let's see if we can use this pattern to create this table. So here dative, so mine, right? Dative mine becomes mine m. Plural also same, so mine m, right? Feminine starts sounding like air, so minor. And I think there is a mistake over here. It should be mine n. It should be seinen, ihren, unseren, euren, ihren. Okay, so again, so masculine neutrum, they are the same, they sound like m. So mine m. Check here as well. Deinem, seinem, ihrem, unserem, eurem. Small ihrem, capital I ihrem, right? Feminine, it will ending will start sounding like air. So meiner, deiner, seiner, ihrer, unserer, eurer, ihrer. Again, later I will tell you not to emphasize R, but for now, just so that you remember the rules, just emphasize the R part, right? What about plural? It starts sounding like N at the end. So meinen, deinen, seinen, ihren, unseren, euren, ihren. Right, I think you could follow this. I apologize for this small mistake. So it will be N at the end for plural in dative. So also what I want to do is, there's just two rules that you remember. So for dative, right? For dative, this table is not complete. What I want to focus on this. So my question for you is, whenever you are using a noun, right, or nomen in article, nomen, you also have to sometimes make changes to the ending of nouns over here. One famous example is, how do you say you are at home, right? If you have to say you are at home, in German you will say ich bin zu Hause, right? If you want to say I'm going home, you will say ich gehe nach Hause. For those, people in German just say it. You also might have started saying without knowing why that is. So house house means home, right? But why are you adding e over here? That is because you are using this zu over here, and it requires what comes after here to be in dative case. And because house is neutrum, in dative case, the noun should end with e. Okay, it also implies for masculine. So whenever you have dative case, okay, whenever you have, ignore genitive, you don't have to know this right now. Just focus on dative. So whenever you are using dative, okay, whenever you are using dative and it is masculine or neutrum noun, you have to add you have to make it, the noun sound like a at the end, Hause. Okay, so ich gehe nach Hause, actually it should be ich bin zu Haus, ich gehe nach Haus, but you have to add e at the end. You don't have to remember this rule whenever it is there. mean, it's um, you will learn this rule without trying to remember it. You will know what I mean as we progress through our sessions. Now the question is about, so just remember it is only for dative, dative for masculine and neutrum cases. Now what about, so there is a question when to add n at the end of the noun. This is also the case only for plural dative. Okay, plural dative. For example, if you want to say I help the men, so if you want to say, so the men in plural is singular is their man, plural is mena, right? But if you want, then you know the verb helfen. Helfen is like, I don't like to call it like, but if you can remember it, like it is a dative verb. So the first object will be dative. So if you want to say I help the men, you will say ich. In helfen conjugated for ich is helfer, and plural dative den, you will say mena, but you have to add n at the end. Why? Don't ask me, that's the German language. So whenever you have plural in dative, you have to make the ending of the noun sound like n. Okay, this also applies without the article. So if you just want to say I help men, so you will say ich helfe Männern. This also applies for this one. If you want to say I help no men, plural men, so ich helfe keinen Männern. Okay, so so I hope you remember, you don't have to remember this table, you know how to draw it. You also know how to draw this table. The reason I say draw, because you drive like you are, I want you to, maybe in the beginning you write, you try to write this table on a piece of paper 4 to 5 times. If you can do it on your own, it's very easy. Later when you are speaking, you don't write, you draw in your head, right? The table just appears in your head when you have to use it. That's why I use the word draw and not write. Just telling you it is. So here there is a mistake. It's deinen, seinen. Okay, plural dative ends with n.